Welcome to the June edition of Here and There, the monthly magazine for week 1 of Sounds Friendly, a Craigavon talking newspaper production. I'm surrounded by men tonight, an enviable position for some ladies, I'm sure. However, as well as all our guests, I am joined by Brian, who will be doing the recording, and our very own amazing Tommy, who will be reading later on. My name is Patricia, and my guests this time are Trevor McKee, who's the chairman, and Gregory Burke, who's the station officer at Craigavon, and they work for Lough Neagh Rescue Service. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening.
You certainly don't look like the RNLI that I'm used to seeing. You're in civvies tonight. But Trevor, can you tell us maybe a bit about the service, how it started and what you do?
Well, the service started in July 1989. There's a young lad from Portadown, not far from here, lived in the Armagh Road, a young fella called David Gray Jr. The reason why I make this distinction is because his father, David Gray Sr., also played a pivotal role in the formation of the organisation.
Having a sort of filled out the background for us, and thank you for that. We're going to see if we can get Gregory to say something here. Mm-hmm. As a station officer, what does that involve?
Station officer involves the day-to-day running of the station itself, looking after equipment, making sure equipment that possibly needs repaired is done so in a timely fashion, letting visitors into the station, opening up for maintenance, logs of equipment checks, safety checks, life jackets. It's quite involved actually, and the station officer would have two substation officers to help out, to try and take the load off.
That's before you do all the paperwork, before you even see water.
Yes, and there's quite a lot of paperwork involved with running a lifeboat service as well. You'd be surprised. We run as a limited company, so we're basically running a company as well as a lifeboat service, and we're justly proud that all the money that's raised for Lough Neagh Rescue, 100% of the money that's raised is spent on Lough Neagh Rescue. Every single penny in that pound goes towards the service. We give our time to do the paperwork, to do the maintenance of the station, to fill the boats, to man the boats, and it can get pretty involved at times,
I know the feeling about the training, and obviously you're not going to let somebody like me or anybody off the street handle one of these expensive boats without a lot of training. So what training do you get?
Well, there's a number of key disciplines that every crew member, whenever he comes on board and becomes a probationer, before he progresses to a competent crew and is issued with a pager, he has to be skilled in his communications. He needs to be able to work the radio. He needs to be able to communicate effectively. He needs to be able to navigate so that he can take the boat to where it needs to go, and whether that's in complete darkness or whatever, the boat has that capability. He needs to learn radar, he needs to learn first aid, and he needs to learn search and rescue techniques. A lot of the skills that we teach our crews aren't available off the shelf as a training package anywhere. The only people that have a college that's dedicated to search and rescue training is the RNLI. Anybody else, their skills are mostly homegrown. They've been developed for the environment that we work in over many, many years. We know what works. What works on the sea won't work on an inland loch. The navionics system that Greg talked about earlier, we have 2 recently purchased boats in the last couple of years, and they came with the full suite of navionics on them. They're integrated navionics as well, so we have positions on the boat that are duplicated at different points in the boat, so any one member of the boat can take over the navigation and the communications, because we have that facility. So it's very intensive on computing power and technology now, because the boat has to be able to operate in all sorts of conditions. There's no conditions that boat can never launch in. Except, of course, if the lock was frozen or whatever, then you physically can't launch. But storm force is no problem to it. They're 8.7 metre delta ribs, so they're capable of dealing with that type of weather. they're capable of working in zero visibility, and I'm talking about zero visibility at night where there's no moonlight, or in blanket fog. And you quite often see at the start of winter there fog coming down on Lough Neagh, because it's in the middle of the Lough Neagh depression, and it just rolls off the hills. And you have sometimes very, very, very little visibility. The boat to get out onto the lough still has to navigate around breakwaters with no visibility. So the crews have to be quite skilled, in working the radio, working the radar, and working the satellite navigation system to be able to get themselves safely out to do the job that they're there to do. So 9 months is probably the quickest that anybody can become competent, and even at that stage, they're given a minor role on the boat until they've had a couple of years under their belt. The coxswains are probably the people with the greatest responsibility, because they're not only responsible for a £200,000 boat, but they're responsible for the 5 crew that are on that boat at that time. He's responsible for their health and safety, and then after that, he's obviously responsible for successfully prosecuting a rescue and getting somebody that's in danger back out of danger. So there is a fair amount to do. It's probably one of the most intense training environments that certainly I've ever seen before. You have to be very knowledgeable and quite technically minded, to make head nor tail of the navionics system that's on the boats. Very advanced.
One of the main questions we get asked by people looking to join the service is, do I have to swim, or do I have to be a good swimmer? But I think most of our rescues are focused on keeping people out of the water. We tend to try and lift casualties out of the water instead of, it's not that often that we would put people into the water, one of our own into the water, because wearing all the gear, it's very hard to swim. So you don't want to be swimming for any length of time, and you tire out wearing that amount of gear as well. So the focus is on keeping people out of the water rather than having Olympic swimmers.
We have nearly come to the end of our recording for this time. I would like to say thank you to my guests, Trevor McKee and Gregory Burke, and to Brian for taking care of the technical side. Tommy, who helped with the interview in that he kept giving me a dig every time I tried to talk too much. But I would like to say thank you to all of you for listening. So it's goodbye until next time.
Oh, tonight in fancy come and take a trip across the sea.